Hello friends, I've again come up with another historical match chess world has ever witnessed. This match is between Gary Kasparov and Veselin Topalov, and it was played in 1999. Before I start showing you the match, I will give you a little bit of a history about this match. Kasparov has a long list of brilliances in his credit, but this game is his virtually undisputed masterpieces. This game is everything a chess game should be: a ferocious fight with brilliance from both players, numerous tactical themes, and a king hunt that drives the king all the way from one side to the board to the other side. It's difficult to imagine any other game atop this list, but we eagerly await new contenders into the coming years. Has said that, uh, Gary Kasparov was playing with the white, and he started with e4, and then d6 from the Topalov, and d6, that's because Topalov wants to unsettle Gary Kasparov openings, and that's why he's played d6. That's basically a perch opening, and it's not very famous at this high level, but still it was played in the game. Then d4 from the white, and knight to f6, knight to c3 from Gary, and then g6. So g6 because Topalov was trying to prepare bishop to g7. And that's perfectly fine. So bishop to e3. Bishop to e3, and then bishop to g7. Now queen d2, because at some point white wants to play the bishop to g6, h6, and try to trade the bishops there. And he has moving forward, c6 from the black, um, and f3 because this is coming, so you need a defender for this pawn. So b5 from the black, and then knight g to e2, and knight b to d7 from black. Here at this position, Gary Kasparov played bishop to h6, where bishop trades have been done. Bishop takes h6, and queen takes h6. Uh, I tell you one thing: beginner level players usually here try to go take the queen to g7 and try to thread this rook. Trust me, it's no use, because rook may come to onto g8, and then you have to retreat the queen back. So there is no point going forward, going to the g7 square. Bishop to b7 from Topalov, and then a3. So a3 because you want to stop the pawn coming onto b4, and then e5. Here at this position, Kasparov castles queen side, so, and queen to e7. Then king to b1, so because you're moving the king to a more safer squares, just because any activity from try to prevent any activity from the g5 square. Here at this position, a6, and now knight to c1, because this knight wants to go on to first b3, and then a5. That's because a6 is giving a very good outpost for this knight. Anyhow, uh, Topalov also castles queen side, and then knight to b3. As I said, this knight is aiming a5 square, and it will be coming sooner or later. Here at this position, e takes d4, where rook takes d4, and then c5. So now there's an attack onto the bishop, so bishop moves to d1 back again, and then knight to b6. Now g3 because I'd show you one thing before I go via g3 because this bishop wants to go to h3. From h3 it will be eyeing onto this onto the king. This knight wants to go to a6, a5, and then it's also attacking onto the queen, onto the king, and this queen will be coming back to f4, where it will be eyeing so all those pieces from Gary Kasparov is eyeing towards this king. So Topalov also hinted this, and he moved his king to b8. So now knight to h5. Topalov thought that an attack onto the bishop, so he moved the bishop to a8. But now bishop to h3. So now you see what's the Gary Kasparov's plans. This diagonal is completely blocked. This square is also blocked, and now so Topalov played d5. Now d5, and now queen to f4 check, and the only place king can move is now king to a7, and now rook h to e1. So all the all of the pieces are now activated. uh, h4 has been played, d4 has been played by Topalov, and which has been countered by knight to d5, where knight b takes d5, where e takes d5, and now it's an attack onto the queen. So queen has moved to d6. So basically, Topalov is now trying to exchange the queens, and if you exchange the queens, this match will most probably be the draw. So, and this is not what the Gary Kasparov is looking for. Instead, he played rook takes d4. So yes, the rook sacrifice here, and that's a very important sacrifice, although it was accepted. So c takes d4, and now rook to e7 check. So another sacrifice, another rook sacrifice. And friends, pause the video here and try to figure it out. Can this rook be captured? Ready? Say for example, if I capture this rook, so queen takes e7. Now queen to d4 check. The only place the king can move is now king to b8, and then queen to b6 check, and you can block this by the rook. First of all, if you block this with the queen, then you will lose the queen, and if you block this by the bishop, but then knight to c6 check, which will be fork between the king and the queen. Since the king cannot go on to the c8, so the only place for the king is to go a8, but then no point capturing the queen, because queen to a7 check will be checkmated. And anyways, let's go back to the game. So in the game, Topalov did not capture. Instead, he played king to b6, and now queen takes d4 check, and then king takes a5, and now b4 check. King, the only square available for the king is king to a4, and now queen to c3, threatening b3 checkmate. So how can you defend this? So queen takes d5 was played, and now this queen is protecting this b3 square. But Gary Kasparov come up with another idea, and then rook to a7, and threatening a6 checkmate. Uh, so friends, now again a puzzle for you. What would you do to save this checkmate? You cannot move the queen, because it has to guard the b3 square, and now uh, this rook to a6 is going to be checkmate. So say for example, if you try to play rook to d6 and try to protect this, but then king to b2 would be very devastating, because now queen to b3 is possible. Say I show you one sample. Let's say for example, here if you play queen to d4, try to exchange the queens, but then you can exchange queens. Queen takes d4, but now rook takes and now rook takes d4, and then rook takes a6 would be a checkmate. So you rook to d6 is not at all possible. Gary Kasparov come up with bishop to b7, which of course has been taken. Rook takes b7. This queen cannot move, so you cannot capture the rook. But queen to c4 was played instead, where queen takes d6 f6, and now you lose the material, and now you are again threatening a queen to a6 checkmate. So the king has to move somewhere, and then the only place for the king is king takes a3, where queen takes f6, and then king takes b4, and now c3 check. But that's very interesting. So if you capture, you cannot capture this with the king, because queen to a5 is coming. So here at this position, king moves to king, but also you cannot go to the c5 square, because rook to c7 will you will lose the king, lose the queen. So anyways, Topalov thought, okay, it's okay to capture the king at the c3 pawn with the king. So king takes c3, but now what, here it comes, queen to a1 check, and now uh, cannot move the king to d3, because bishop to f1 you will lose the queen here. So king moves to d2, and now queen to b2 check. Now king moves to d1, and now as you see, the king has now completed all the way to the white's territory. But here at this position, Gary Kasparov have come up with another master class here, and he used his very passive bishop to f1, and now of course, and there's an attack onto the queen. You will not be able to capture queen to, with the queen, so queen to f1, because then queen to c2 would be a very devastating. Queen to c2 check. You can move to the king to e1, but then rook to e7 check would be very devastating, and then the only piece you can block this check with queen to e2, and then queen to e2 would be checkmate. Instead, Topalov come up with rook to d2, and now attacking onto the queen. So what would you do at this position? Of course, you can capture, you can save the queen by queen takes h8, but then it will be checkmate. Queen to b3, and then there is no defense for this. So of course you cannot move the queen to sorry, the queen to you cannot take the queen h8. Here Gary Kasparov come up with rook to d7, and that's pinning the rook, of course sacrificing his rook here. So you can take rook to d7, and then you lose the queen. So bishop takes c4, where b takes c4, there is no other option. Say for example, if you tried not to capture this bishop and try to uh, save the rook, but then say for example, if I try to play rook to e8, because king to e2 would be checkmate, but then it will be of no use, because queen to c2 check is coming, and it will be all over very soon. So anyways, let's go back in the game. uh, b takes c4 was played, and then queen takes h8. uh, Here at this position, rook to d3 was played, um, but then queen to a8. So this pawn has been defended, and then c3. Now first of all, queen to a4 check. So there is no hope whatsoever. Gary Kasparov has been very brutal. Queen to e1 was played, and now f4. So anything of this sort has also been dealt with, uh, At this position, f5 was played, and now uh, king to c1. So any sort of c2 activity has also been taken care of. Now uh, rook to d2. So threat the point. Topalov wants to capture the pawn at h2, but now queen to a7, and at this position, Topalov has resigned because there is no defense. A queen to g2 is also coming, and that's way too strong for Topalov. So friends, let me know how you find this video. Although you will find this game in almost every channel, I just take my part to demonstrate this video, demonstrate this chess game. Is of course one of the very greatest game of the recent times. Let me know how you find it. Take care. Till then, bye bye.